From Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the Business, Equity, and Opportunities Podcast with Scott Sander.
Welcome to the Business, Equity, and Opportunities Podcast. I'm Scott Sander. On this episode,
we visit the AMP Food Hall to meet artisan chefs. Our CFO talks about the troubled banking picture in accounting and bookkeeping and how it may affect you. And we wrap up Women's History Month at Eskenazi Health.
Every business is unique and has a target audience. If you own or manage a business, Circulus Digital Media can help you connect and grow your customer base with turnkey digital solutions that are nimble, offering best-in-class results, service, and support to reach a bigger customer base, allowing you to pinpoint a specific audience down to the smallest details. Get outside the city, the state, span the globe. Put Circulus Digital Media to work for you. Get started now at circulusdigital.com. That's circulusdigital.com.
Welcome to Business, Equity, and Opportunities. I'm Scott Sander. First weekend of spring brings thoughts of starting. Flowers start blooming, the sun starts shining longer, and hopeful entrepreneurs start businesses. If that could be you, this hour is for you. Each week we speak to business professionals, community leaders, our own team of experts, sharing experiences to help you build and grow your own successful business. We have 7 segments that cover the things you'll need to know along the way: getting started, gaining access to capital, running your business day to day, and more. And we always wrap things up with a success story. We're here every Sunday morning on Wish TV and live streaming through wishtv.com. You can also see most of our content and share it on demand anytime at BE&O.com. That site grows every week with new stories, new resources. And while you're there, sign up for our podcast. You can listen to us anytime, anywhere, at the time convenient to you. We also encourage you to sign up for our newsletter that we update every Tuesday. A lot there and a lot here. Let's get to the business of business. Here's what's coming up today on Business, Equity, and Opportunity. We visit the AMP Food Hall to meet with an artisan chef, and we look at this weekend's Indiana Artisan Marketplace. Our CFO talks about the troubled banking picture in accounting and bookkeeping. The Idle George Museum presents the work of legendary photographer Dorothea Lange. And we wrap up Women's History Month at Eskenazi Health. But first, we're getting started with a visit to the AMP, an artisan marketplace on the near west side of Indianapolis. There we meet a chef who turned her own health crisis into a business that helps people eat healthier.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities. Getting started.
Chef Tawana Gully is the founder and owner of Healthy Soul, a restaurant, meal prep, and catering business operating out of the AMP. For her, it's all about keeping her community healthy.
Healthy Soul came about, I guess you could say, for health reasons. I once was 345 pounds, a little bit over that, and was suffering from diabetes, chronic asthma, and just general overweight. Primarily in my day, I worked at an office, ran a medical office, and we sat all day. And I found out I had some fibroids. Finally got enough courage to go through the steps to actually have them removed, and found out that I couldn't because I had all these different things, medical issues going on. And so I always do things better when I do them for other people. And so there were other ladies in my office that got diagnosed with diabetes as well. And so I was like, well, maybe we could do something together. And so I went ahead and we started meal prepping. And I meal prepped for, it started out with 6 people. I think it was 5 or 6, give or take. And it kind of just snowballed into something else. We ended up actually walking 20 minutes a day and drinking our water like we were supposed to. And through that, I got a trainer, and I gave a trainer a meal, and Healthy Soul was born. She's like, you really need to do something with this. But I wasn't listening to her at the time. I was like, it's just food, but then she's like, you need to share what you learned in this process. So I think we had 4 of us that had A1Cs over 13. And through that meal prep, and through the 20 minutes of exercise and eliminating a lot of the bad sugar, we went from, in 90 days, we went from those 13.7s to like 6s and 7s. So that was a traumatic change. Between the 5 of us, we lost over 100, and I think it was 103 pounds. from just that 20 minutes of walking, and it was just life-changing for me. And so I finally did what the trainer said. She showed me a few things about macro counting, and I just kind of got really obsessed with it and was like, what can I do to change the way I'm eating but still love it? And then that is when I started coming up with these different concepts. I'm not a person who eats things like the same thing every day. It's like so boring. And then like vegetables was like this thing, like unless they were frozen or out of a can, they were just something you have a second thought about. And so I just decided to make them the focal point of everything that I do. So I put them in everything. And Healthy Soul just kind of, I came into the AMP. We just used to do it for athletes. And it was like everyday people who wanted to do a change, but sometimes they're not consistent with it. So when we came into the AMP, I talked to Craig and I showed him what I did, and he was like, oh, you need to do that here. And so the seasoning and all the things that came along with that were kind of like me condensing everything into one product and model. And shout out to Brian Henley. He redid my logo for me, and we just never looked back. I really thought I could just show up and cook, but I tell you, I learned like, no. So I really had to step up my being a businesswoman. And looking at opportunities and saying like, okay, I can't do that. Now I don't say I can't do that. It's like, okay, let's figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And if you get past on an opportunity, I don't look at those no's as like, oh, that's because you didn't do a good job. I look at it, okay, this is another opportunity for me to learn and grow. What was I missing? You know what I mean? So we look at it like that. The first week we were in here, we did VIP. And that was like a huge experience because you get exposure to things that you've never been exposed to, and being in that environment, that many people eating your food and saying like, wow, what is this? Where are you at? That puts you in go mode. It's like, oh wow, I really can do this. Cause like, even though I got here, I was still on the fence of like, is this really something I can do? But they kind of give you that encouragement, and there's a lot of opportunities that come about from just being in the AMP environment, like, getting to know your vendors, the people who are next to you. I mean, we collab so much. Like we're doing things now where we're taking a taste of AMP into different places, and so that is really important. So I think we kind of built a little family, and we kind of just, the opportunities that come along, we're always sharing with each other and trying to push each other forward. I'm a dreamer. I always like to dream big. So, I think food has so many different avenues that you can go down. As for me, it's opened up a lot more private chef opportunities. We do a lot of catering, but also it's given me a spotlight to it's put me in the spotlight for kids in our community that need more training, who need to be exposed to better eating habits like meal prep, and knowing that, you can go to a farmer's market and that their voice can be influential to their parents to like kind of change the way that they do things, because our community as a whole perishes for lack of knowledge. And all the things that I learned, I want to try and make sure that I can go into these places and show these kids, not whether it be just the good eating habits or just the entrepreneurship piece of it, that I look like them. I look like the black and brown kids in this community. I look like their aunt. I look like their sister. And so I feel like they'll listen, and then I'm giving them a good example of how that could go if you just step out on faith. We have started to just go into the schools. Like we've done Tinley, Accelerated Academy. We're going to be over at Christmas Addicts, and we're just generally going to be in there talking about the importance of making better food choices. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're in a restaurant or if you're at home, because the kids are like, we're subject to what their parents buy. But some kids, they do have the opportunity to say like they're going to the grocery store with their mom, so if they know better, they do better. Let's eat this instead of this. Once you get that information, then you're more likely to use it. And so that's the biggest thing that we want to make sure that you just get the information. And so we partner with a lot of the community's leaders to kind of help me get into these spaces, like McCoy, and then also developing training camps and boot camps that the kids can go through too over the summers that can really immerse them in that type of atmosphere. So it won't be just a one-time thing where you just leave it, it's one and done. It's a process. And the more places you go, the more times you see the kids, the more you interact with them, then that information is disseminated throughout. Culinary arts or just food in general just makes this is my happy place. And anything that I've ever done, the basis of it, I could be mad, I could cook. If I'm upset, I could cook. You know what I'm saying? The only thing that I learned to do differently is change the relationship with the food. So, you know, we definitely are what we eat. And so you can change little things and make a big difference. And when I see people eat that, it's like, wow, it's like supercharged. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and you don't even realize, like, you just ate a bunch of vegetables that were stuck in there and you had no idea. So that just brings me a lot of joy just to see that.
It is time on Business Equity and Opportunities when we talk accounting and bookkeeping, and it seems the banking world is top of mind for anybody thinking about dollars and cents right now. Certainly true for our Chief Financial Officer at Circle City Broadcasting. Taishe joins us from time to time, and a good time to talk now. Hope you're well. What are your, I guess, general thoughts on the banking situation in America right now?
Sure. I won't opine too much on what I see to be the long-term potential effects on that. I think one thing I can add and would have folks do that are concerned about their depository accounts is, a couple things you can do to potentially mitigate your risk are, do a little research on your bank. There are resources out there that you can look at that can basically gauge the financial health and stability of your bank. One that comes to mind is called the Bauer Financial Rating System. You can find that with a quick Google check. And the other thing you can do is, just talk with your lender or, depository officer. Just get a feel for kind of the overall portfolio of your bank and kind of get a sense of perhaps how risky that bank can be. I mean, I think one thing that should be noted about the Silicon Valley Bank was that, they had a very niche portfolio that I think contributed to what we saw a couple of weeks ago. And so, that can certainly affect things. But it's something as a potential, if you're looking to put your funds in a bank like that, you should be aware of a potential niche like that could, have some risk sensitivity if things were to change in the market.
Yeah, it is certainly interesting. We're here in the heartland, maybe not necessarily knew much about, Silicon Valley Bank or Signature Bank, which is a maybe more familiar name. Credit Suisse, we've heard about, but often not one that we'd have day to day with. But now all of a sudden it's top of mind. It occurs to me as I listen to you that it's a good idea to maybe revisit a theme you've hit on from time to time: communication, relationships, any questions they should be able to answer for you.
Right. Isn't it funny how communication seems to come up every time we talk? It also, I think, illustrates how important that relationship is with your banker in so many facets of your business. Sure. And really, that should be a rock solid relationship. And open communication is certainly part of that. Another thing to note, with the FDIC insurable limit, it went up since 2008. So it used to be $100,000. Now it's $250,000. And so, that the likelihood that there are measures in place to, safeguard your assets and just be aware of those and have those conversations.
When we talk, it's always about small business owners, and in that way, a lot of these are the institutions we would turn to for access to capital. Borrowing dollars from the banks, does any of what we've seen with the depositors getting nervous seem to have an impact on that side of their ledger and ours?
Yeah, well, there is a cause and effect where, basically banks are allowed to lend based on the amount of deposits they have in-house. And so if there is a run on depositors pulling their money out, there is an offset that has to happen on the lending side where they may not be able to lend as much as previously. So they are intertwined, and that's why I certainly, from all perspectives, we're all, hoping and anticipating that there wouldn't be a run on the depository side because that pendulum would potentially swing on the lending side.
I guess as a final question, kind of draw back on your experiences. You probably well remember the S&L crisis. You worked during the time of the banking crisis. And then there are decades and decades ago where we saw similar situations. At the very least, would you say that each time there is one of these shock waves, that there are adjustments made with the goal of making it safer the next time something like this happens?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is kind of borne out over time, where you can see measures put in place, whether it be the arm of the government trying to safeguard assets. And the idea is to obviously calm the general public and try and assure them that, to have confidence in the system. But yes, with each one of these, measures are put in place, safeguards are put in place to kind of counteract or prevent of something like that had just happening in the future.
All right, well, it'll certainly be something that people watch, and as you advise, talk with bankers about, maybe set each other at ease with those relationships that we talk so often about. And thank you for the time and conversation as well, Ty Shea.
Thank you, Scott.
For more information about accounting and bookkeeping or any of the topics we cover, visit BEOshow.com. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter that we update every Tuesday. Subscribe to the Business Equity and Opportunities podcast. Listen whenever you want. Welcome back to Business Equity and Opportunities. We have celebrated the accomplishments of several women this week as part of our tribute to Women's History Month. We have one more to introduce you to in our success story, a leader in the field of women's health.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities. Success Story.
Dr. Elizabeth Ferries-Rowe is the Chief of Obstetrics and Gynecological Services for Eskenazi Health. It's her mission to make quality women's health services more accessible.
I am an OBGYN. I am an IU Health employee who is employed by Eskenazi. I've been here for 17 years as faculty. For a number of years, I was chief of service for OBGYN, and then a few years ago became director of women's services, which is a sort of larger position that incorporates both inpatient and outpatient care involving women and patients undergoing gender care. I work with a fantastic group of people who I think is really dedicated to the mission of Eskenazi, which includes the care of women in all walks of life, including those who are experiencing challenges to receiving medical care. And then my patients are those people. So I see patients from the local community. My clinic site is on the west side, so that's sort of my people. I have a west side is the best side sweatshirt from the clinic. And then I also see patients here at the hospital. I see patients in all ranges, from employees all the way to employees of the health department, as well as people in the community. And one of the things I think I like most about the work I do is the variety, both of the work and the people that I care for. I think there are not a lot of people who have the opportunity to need 7 different languages to round on the postpartum floor. And I think that's one of the really cool things about working here, is kind of meeting people and working with people from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of experiences. As I was thinking about sort of my career and how long I've been here and things we might talk about in this interview, Marilyn Graham was an OBGYN who was sort of the face of OBGYN at Wishart when I was a resident, a med student and resident. And she truly was, to me, sort of the exemplar of like a servant leader. And I think that's, do I consciously think of her every day? No. But is she sort of how I model my career? Yeah. And she was in the role of chief of service until she passed from ovarian cancer. And so that was also sort of both sides of the medical care experience, to watch her go through that and continue to work as long as she possibly could, because she really felt a call to serve the patients of Wishart. And I do feel like I kind of follow in her footsteps. So yeah, I want patients and the patients that I care for and their families to feel empowered to access care and to ask for that care that they need. I think an expansion of that in sort of the educational side of my work is to try and create skills in learners that help them to meet patients where they are and engage patients on a level that makes it possible for them to get the care that they need. And then sort of in the beyond Indianapolis service role, I'm also chair of the Indiana section of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So I have been working to try and expand that kind of patient-centered skills to all of Indiana and to all the providers in Indiana, physicians, and we also have nurse practitioners and APPs who attend those meetings, because I think part of the challenge for all physicians right now is burnout, right? And figuring out how to make the job meet our needs as well is a way to prevent that. And I think making it about how we care for patients and how we create healthcare systems that make it possible for us to care for patients in the best way is a way to approach that burnout as well, and to provide better care across the state. I think figure out what it is that you love about medicine and create a job path that optimizes that, right? If what you love is delivering babies, then find a job where you deliver babies. And that can be hard because, especially when you start out, there's a sense of like, I have to take what's offered to me because this is the opportunity that's here. And there's a fear that if you say no, people won't ask again. And so figuring out how to balance taking the opportunities that come with the rest of your life is very important. I struggle a little bit with the concept of work-life balance. It's a big buzzword, right? But what does that mean? Your work and your life are the same thing. It's not like you drop work and come home and do the rest of your life and like have to sort of balance the scales at the end of the day. It's really more about how you integrate all aspects of your life, which is your family life and your work life and your exercise and your hobbies and whatever it is that, you know, that helps keep you balanced. And so for me, I think it is about always, if I were to talk to an incoming female physician, I would say find what it is that you love about the job and prioritize that. And does that mean that sometimes you'll do things that you don't love? Yeah, it does, right? Like, there are lots of times that you have to put in work that you don't love to do the part that you do love. And it's okay to do that as well. But kind of always keep that one nugget in mind that this is why I do this for a living, and make sure that that kind of is prioritized. And that's your kids too, right? And that's your husband too, and that's your parents, and that's your dog who needs a walk. And it's, it's about how to figure out all of those things in the day. But if you can get to the end of the day and be like, you know what, today here's a good example. Today I delivered a couple babies, did a lovely interview. I'm going to go help my husband coach high school speech because I did high school speech, and there's a female student who asked for some help with that. And then I'm going to come home and, make dinner and watch TV and go to bed. And if you can have a day where you get to deliver babies and coach speech and spend time with your kids, like, that's a good day. And so I think it's about trying to figure out how to integrate that in every day.
Our thanks again to all the contributors who joined us for this episode of the Business Equity and Opportunities podcast. We hope you found it enlightening, useful, and inspiring. You'll find more information about the show on our website, BEOshow.com. You can watch Business Equity and Opportunities Sunday mornings at 10 on Wish TV or live stream it through wishtv.com. Each week we provide 7 full segments with topics ranging from how to get started and how to access capital to the day-to-day running of your business and questions about accounting and bookkeeping. We feature business news and trends and always share a success story from one of our contributors. Join us next time for more insights into the world of small business. Be sure to sign up for our Business Equity and Opportunities newsletter to get even more valuable, up-to-date information. And if you have any questions or you'd like to be part of our show, please email us. The address is beo@wishtv.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Scott Sander. Thanks for listening.
Watch the Business Equity and Opportunity Show on Wish TV and access all of our content and share it on demand anytime at BEOshow.com. You can find more podcasts from Wish TV on the All Indiana Podcast Network at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.